Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Mainstream Monday right here on Night Owl Video. Today we are talking about this film, Deliverance. Yeah. This movie this movie's infamous or famous, I guess, for some things that happen in it. So we'll tread lightly as we go over this. Of course, nothing near like a couple months ago I reviewed I Spit on Your Grave. Nothing like that, but still pretty disturbing stuff. So we'll go over that. But today we'll be talking about cast, production, critical reception, my thoughts on the film, where you can watch it, and all that jazz. So I hope you will stick around and enjoy this review. Deliverance is an adventure thriller film from 1972. It was directed by John Boorman, who also did Zardoz, a movie I actually recently picked up in a thrifting haul, but have not yet watched. He also directed Exorcist 2, which do we need to talk about Exorcist 2? No. And he also directed Excalibur, which is a film I never saw up until the pandemic, and I watched it for the first time. Not a big fan of that movie, but I know it has its fans, and so God love you. This film is one of his other films that he directed, and of course, probably, I'm going to say of those three other movies, this one's probably the most well-known because of its infamy. This movie has a great cast. Jon Voight, who was also in Heat, Anaconda, and Mission Impossible. It also stars Burt Reynolds right over here, who's in Smokey and the Bandit 1 through 3, Boogie Nights, and The Longest Yard remake. This also stars Ned Beatty. This was his first movie, poor guy. He was also actually in Exorcist 2, Superman 1 and 2, and he was a voice of... was he the voice of Lotso in the Toy Story 3 or something? He was a voice in Toy Story 3, I believe. This also stars Ronnie Cox, who was in RoboCop, Total Recall, and a lot of TV appearances. So, the synopsis for Deliverance is 4 city-dwelling friends, Jon Voight, Burt Reynolds, Ned Beatty, Ronnie Cox, decide to get away from their jobs, wives, and kids for a week of canoeing in rural Georgia. I mean, that already sounds bad to me, but when the men arrive, they are not welcomed by the backwoods locals who stalk the vacationers and attack them in the woods. Reeling from the ambush, the friends attempt to return home, but they're surrounded by dangerous rapids and pursued by a madman. Soon their canoe trip turns into a fight for survival. The screenplay was adapted by James Dickey from his 1970 novel of the same name. In 2008, Deliverance was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being, quote, culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant, unquote. The budget for this film was $2 million and the box office was $46.1 million. So it's kind of weird nobody ever talks about that, but I guess this was considered like a box office hit. Probably because the word got out that this movie has some pretty crazy stuff in it, and maybe people just had to see it. Deliverance was shot primarily in Rabun County in northeastern Georgia. The canoe scenes were filmed in the Tallulah Gorge southeast of Clayton and on the Chattanooga River. During the filming of the canoe scene, author James Dickey showed up inebriated and entered into a bitter argument with producer-director John Boorman, who had rewritten some of Dickey's script. They allegedly had a brief fistfight in which Boorman, a much smaller man than Dickey, suffered a broken nose and 4 shattered teeth. Dickey was thrown off the set, but no charges were filed against him. The two reconciled and became good friends later on, and Boorman gave Dickey a cameo as the sheriff at the end of the film. So I didn't know that until doing my research for this review, so pretty interesting stuff. The film is infamous for, well, among other things, for the cost cutting by the studio in an effort to kill it and having the actors perform their own stunts, such as Jon Voight notably climbing a cliff himself. Burt Reynolds requested to have one scene reshot with himself in a canoe rather than a dummy as it tumbled over a real waterfall. And then in the stuff that I read, apparently Burt Reynolds did the stunt in the canoe, and then when it was done, he said, "How did it look?" And they said it looked like a dummy going down a waterfall in a canoe. So I guess he could have, in the end, used the dummy. But Burt Reynolds recalled the infamous scene in the woods, which is, of course, what most people know this movie for, as being so uncomfortable that cameramen avoided watching, and Burt Reynolds opted to interrupt the filming. Reynolds said, quote, "I asked John Boorman, the director, why did you let it go that long?" Unquote. He said, quote, "I wanted to take it as far as I could with the audience, and I figured you'd run in when it got too far," unquote. So there is a scene in the woods where one of the gentlemen is physically assaulted, sexually assaulted by one of the locals, and it's a pretty disturbing scene. If you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, just be aware that that's in there. It is pretty upsetting, even to this day when I rewatched it for this review. I still have a really hard time watching that movie, or that scene, I should say. But it's something. It's something. But once you see that scene, if you've never seen it, once you see that scene, you'll know where some of the quotations have come from over the years and why it's so infamous. But I don't really want to get into it too much. I mean, if you've seen it, you know, and if you haven't seen it, well, you know, it is from 1972. So, I mean, you know, what's that, like 52, 53 years ago? Pretty powerful stuff. And I can imagine in 1972, that was probably pretty shocking. I mean, we hadn't even gotten to like a lot of the grindhouse and the horror slasher stuff and all that, and like, you know, I Spit on Your Grave and all that stuff. So this was probably pretty shocking for audiences, and this was a mainstream movie with a mainstream cast, so probably a lot of people were like taken back by this. Gene Siskel of the Chicago, so this film currently holds an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, if you follow that type of thing. Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune gave the film 4 stars out of 4 and wrote, quote, "It is a gripping horror story that at times may force you to look away from the screen, but it is so beautifully filmed that your eyes will eagerly return," unquote. And I will give it that. The scenery is really shot so beautifully. My thoughts on this film: wildly disturbing, but also really engaging. You're on a ride with these guys, whether you want to go or not, and you can just feel the woods closing in around you. The opening scene, they're just trying to find the entrance to the lake, or the river, sorry, and they get lost on a road, and like the hillbillies are making fun of them, and you just know some bad stuff's coming, baby. And of course, there's the famous dueling banjo scene as well, which is really disturbing. So there's all this stuff going on, which is really like, whoa, really, really dark and disturbing. So just be forewarned if you've never seen this movie before. This is a city dweller's nightmare. Apparently, and I'm sure some of you have heard this before, but apparently after this film was released, the sale of camping supplies and goods and tents went way down. So I think this was kind of like, a lot of people were like, oh God, like, I don't want this to happen to me, so I'm not going camping for a while. So now I don't know if that's true or not, but I did read that somewhere. The characters are really well-rounded and convincing. You really get that sense of, like, with Jon Voight, his sort of idealism. Burt Reynolds is, of course, the hotshot, like, tough guy, the alpha of the group. And then, like, poor Ned Beatty, like, you know, you do feel bad for him. Ronnie Cox sort of is, you know, he's there. But really, Burt Reynolds, I think, steals the show just because he's so, like, intense in this movie. And, you know, this is Burt in his prime. Like, he was looking pretty good in this movie, I'm not gonna lie. But it's that cockiness that he has that also, you know, it's interesting because it kind of shows him breaking a little bit too, and where he was like the leader, he's sort of at near the end is not so much that. And again, I don't want to give away too much, but it's interesting to see the development of the characters over time too. Jon Voight is sort of the ex-hippie that brings his acoustic guitar, and he's a gentle person, but by the end he has to sort of toughen up. And so you get that really beautiful, like, character development throughout the movie, which I think is why it works. The action scenes are shot really well. Like I said, the scenery behind them, it's just shot so beautifully. It's exciting to watch. The one scene, like I said, will disturb some viewers, but if you know that going in, you know, it only lasts for a few minutes, and it's weird that that part of the movie, the assault that happens in the woods, is something that everyone always talks about, but they don't talk about the rest of the movie. It's always like, oh, that's the one with the, the piggy thing, and but there's so much more depth to this movie, and like I said, just the camera work and the cinematography, like, whoa, baby. So don't let that be like a detractor, especially if you're like, oh, I don't want to see that, because the bulk of the movie is unbelievably well made. So highly recommend it. 2 thumbs up from Night Owl Video on Deliverance from 1972. This edition is the 2007 Warner Brothers DVD. It says deluxe edition, although I don't know what's deluxe about it. I guess the special features. There's a 4-part 35th anniversary retrospective with the film stars, director John Boorman, and others, exploring the winding journey from original novel through production and release, including a look at the movie's controversial abduction sequence. Commentary by director John Boorman, vintage featurette The Dangerous World of Deliverance theatrical trailer. This has a runtime of 109 minutes. It's rated R in Canada, or 18, rated 18 also R. This is a Region 1 DVD from Warner Brothers. Ride the rapids of the screen's supreme man versus nature adventure in a newly remastered edition with remarkable extras. So let's have a look inside. Oh, there's nothing. It's just a boring disc. And it's an eco case. So I don't know how deluxe this is. I feel like I should have had at least like a slipcover or something. But this movie, again, this is like, I'm also a little biased because I love 70s cinema. Burt Reynolds in his prime, of course, is tasty and spicy, but I'm a little biased because I just like 70s cinema, and I think this is like, if I think of like other like Exorcist or Alien or the first Star Wars, like there's so many great films, Taxi Driver, from the 70s, and it's all my favorite stuff. And I would say this is one of my favorites from that era. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite movies of all time, but it is very, very well done. Which is surprising because John Boorman's other outings, I guess a lot of people think Excalibur's great. It wasn't for me. Exorcist 2 is considered one of the worst movies of all time, and I haven't seen Zardoz, but I'm going to base my, based on stills I've seen of Sean Connery with a mustache and that skimpy spacesuit, I'm going to guess it's probably not that good, but I could be wrong. But I think this, to me, of those 3 movies plus this is definitely the best. This is so good, and I wonder like what happened to John Boorman. Maybe it was just the material he was working with, but this movie, intense and excellent. You can currently rent this on YouTube, Google Play, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV. I'll show you a look at the back of the case. There's some stills from the movie. Oh yeah. So that's a still from the really disturbing scene there, and poor Ned Beatty. There's the dueling banjo scene at the top. That song, of course, I think that song got like really popular after this movie came out, which is weird. But yeah, those few things will stick with you. Those things will haunt you. This movie will probably haunt you for some time if you've never seen it. And even if you have seen it and you rewatch it, you'll be like, this was some intense stuff. That's my thoughts on Deliverance. What did you think of this film? Did you like it? Were you too creeped out to watch it? Maybe you heard about it and just couldn't bring yourself to watch it. But I thought this was just a great movie. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What you thought about this movie. I'd love to hear from you. without, of course, being too graphic in the comments. But I would appreciate any input on that, and I love to hear from other people about movies. That's why I do this channel. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Consider giving me the thumbs up if you like this review. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Every Monday is Mainstream Monday, every Tuesday is Cult Movie Tuesday, and every Friday is Fright Friday, where I do a horror movie review. And in between, I try to do some thrifting haul videos and things like that. Follow me over on Instagram at Night Owl Video. And until next time, I will see you at the video store or at the thrift store or just out and about somewhere. Hopefully not rafting down a river being chased by scary people. But until next time, take good care of yourselves. Do go outside, though, and enjoy some of the sunshine. And I will see you in the next video.